Kelly Davis, your host of the Untold Miracles podcast, and today I am so excited because we have a very special and funny guest on the podcast. He's one of the most respected and successful comedians in the country. He's also an actor, a multiple Grammy nominee. He's been the host of numerous television shows, including Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader? He's the best-selling author of 26 books, a member of the Blue Collar Comedy Tour, and he's a father to daughters Jordan and Julianne and husband to Pamela, Mr. Jeff Foxworthy. Welcome to the podcast.
That really makes it sound like I've been busy, Kelly. I didn't realize I'd done all those things.
You've done a few things in your long career. Jeff, I first met you about 20 years ago at a big event for Children's Miracle Network hospitals at Disney World. And since then, you've done various events for us and our children's hospitals, including Duke Children's. And I just want to thank you, first of all, for your big heart and for your support of our organization.
Oh, yeah, you guys do such wonderful things. You know, my wife and I we were like head of the fundraising efforts for the Duke Children's Hospital for almost 20 years.
Unbelievable.
You know, you talk about miracles. Our big fundraising thing was a golf tournament, but I don't play golf. And I was like, let me kick the golf tournament off, but let me go visit the kids. And we just kind of had a deal that when we went to the Children's Hospital, we weren't going to go see 5 kids and walk past all those rooms. I'm like, I want to go see every kid. I don't want one kid to feel like they're less special than the rest. And we would take our kids along and just kind of tell them, look, these kids did nothing to deserve this. They just woke up one day and had a sore throat or had a weird bruise. But you don't think at the time that you're doing that, the influence that it has. Well, I live next door to my brother who has 3 daughters, and his oldest one just graduated from medical school, and she's going to be a pediatric oncologist. She's a doctor.
Oh, my gosh.
And she said, when we were little and we would walk through those hospitals and I would see the kids suffering from this thing, she said, I decided early in life that I wanted to try to help fix that.
She witnessed miracles, and now she's going to go create miracles.
Yeah, exactly. Just from being around it.
That's incredible.
Yeah. And so, at her graduation, when they announced Dr. Blake Foxworthy, I got tears rolling down my face. I'm like, wow, this is so cool. And my oldest one works in a homeless shelter. She's got a master's, and she works full-time in a homeless shelter. And so, you realize kids do watch what you do. It's not so much what you say, but when they see you investing your life into other people, it makes an impression on them.
Speaking of the homeless shelter, for 8 years, you've done a weekly Bible class for the homeless. And I want to know your why behind this and the biggest miracle that you've witnessed at the mission.
So much of my adult life has been working with children's hospitals and kids with cancer, and whether it's Cure or Camp Sunshine or Duke Children's or St. Jude's or you guys, and I had probably I never really thought about homelessness, and my thing was, here's $5, go away from the window, and I happened to meet a guy that lived in a homeless shelter. He was 21, and in my mind, I'm thinking, you're 21. Go get a job. Why the heck are you in a homeless shelter? And I sat down to lunch with him one day, and I said, what's your story? He said, it was me and my dad and mom and my brother. And he said, when I was 11, my mom killed herself. He said, 2 years later, my brother killed himself. And then it was me and my dad. In my second year of college, my dad killed himself.
Oh, my gosh.
And he said, I just got so tired of hurting that I started getting high. And as I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, I would have started getting high too, to lose everybody in your family to suicide.
Right.
And
wow.
And so I realized under the right circumstances, I could be this guy. And what I started to find out by starting to work down there was almost everybody there, man and woman, something bad had happened to them in their life to where they couldn't deal with the pain, and so they started numbing, whether it was alcohol or drugs. Well, if you're an alcoholic or a drug addict, you can't work. You get fired, and then you take advantage of your family for so much that they can't deal with you, and that's how you end up on the street. And so my buddy at the homeless shelter, he said, I want you to do something. And I figured what he was going to say was, can you do a concert and give us the money? And I said, sure, what? And he said, these guys have never done a small group where they just sat around and talked. He said, would you lead a small group Bible study for these guys on Tuesday mornings? And I'm thinking, well, there's 6.5 million people in Atlanta. You don't have anybody more qualified for this than me. But I say this, Kelly, about miracles. You don't even have to be qualified. All you have to do is say yes. I'll do it. I'll do it. And it started with me and 12 homeless guys. And I would stop at Chick-fil-A and I'd get chicken biscuits just to encourage them to come. Well, I've been doing it almost 10 years. Now there's 20-something group leaders, and it's 350 homeless guys every Tuesday morning. Now, out of that group, I can't tell you the number that have been reunited with their family. In fact, the first kid that I told you about, the family committed suicide, he has been sober now for 9 years. He went back and got his nursing degree and just got his master's in nursing, got his own place. He's got his life back.
Wow.
And so, when you see broken people restored, and people say, well, there's no miracles today. I'm like, no, that's a miracle. That was somebody that had no hope,
right,
that now is not only taking care of themselves, they're taking care of other people.
Well, there are little and big miracles, and that's a ginormous miracle.
But it wasn't that I was the most qualified or the best person for the job. All I did was say, yes, I'll do it. So I tell people that when it comes to volunteering, just say, yes, I'll do it. And it's funny, like with me, people go, well, I had no idea that you did that. And I'm like, well, I wasn't doing it so people knew that I did it. I was just doing it.
Right.
I get frustrated when you see like famous people that only do something when there's a TV camera with them. The only reason I was doing it was because there was a need for it.
Right.
I work on weekends, so I had Tuesday mornings available.
In spite of your big career and traveling, you managed to make being a dad and a husband your number one priority. And I want you to tell us about the gift you received from a friend that helped you realize just how precious your time with your children is.
I grew up without a dad. My dad left early in my life. And so...
How old were you?
I was almost 9.
Okay.
And so... But I kind of became the dad, at that point. And no matter what your parents say, when you have a parent that leaves, in your mind, you think, I wasn't worth sticking around for. And so I just always thought, my kids are never going to feel that way. And so, and even though I have a job that requires me to be in a different city every night, I always made my family the priority. Somebody was interviewing me a couple of years ago, and they said, okay, you write books, you do TV, you do stand-up, you paint, which one are you? And I said, well, those are all things that I do, and I love what I do. I wouldn't want to do anything else. But who I am is I'm a husband, and I'm a dad, and I'm a brother, and I'm a son, and I'm a person of this community. So even though what I do may change, who I am hopefully always stays the same. So even though it was so expensive, I would rent a plane the whole time my kids were growing up. And no matter where I was, when I walked off stage, I came home every night. And I may not get home till 2 or 3, but I was up at 6 and I was taking them to school, or going to their soccer game or basketball or whatever they were doing. And then at 4 or 5 in the afternoon, I'd get on a plane and I'd fly to the next city.
And this provided you 100 more days with your family.
Oh, 100 more days a year. I had a buddy, I was lucky, that early on gave me a little bottle. And when I say little, I mean, it's maybe 4 inches tall, and it had beads in it. And he goes, just put that on your counter. And I said, what is it? He goes, that's how many weekends you have left with your oldest child. He said, always as a reminder. And so all through my career, I would turn down movies, and my kids would think I was crazy. They were like, Dad, you should do it. And I said, no, I got 6 summers left with you, and I'm not giving 7 weeks of one of them away to do a silly movie. I want to spend it with you. And so my kids always knew that even though I had a job that took me, they were always the priority. My wife has always known that. And so now my kids are grown and they both live 20 minutes away from me. I'm nuts about my wife, and we've been married 33 years. What I do changes, especially in show business. You don't stay popular forever.
But you've stayed popular forever. You really have. Everyone knows you and loves you.
And I'm so lucky that way, that I've gotten to do something that I love to do for such a long time. Still love to do it.
Because you were in the corporate world for 5 years at IBM. How did you become a comedian?
Well, when I was a kid, I would save my allowance and I would buy comedy records and I'd memorize them and I'd go to school and I was always getting in trouble for making everybody laugh. But I never thought about it as a career. I thought you had to work. And so I had a job at IBM carrying a tool bag and fixing machines. But I was the guy that was doing impersonations of the boss in the break room, and always getting caught. And I just worked with some guys that went to a local comedy club in Atlanta, and they kept coming back and they go, "You're funnier than the people there. You need to do this." And I didn't do it. And so they entered me in a contest, not like an amateur night.
You didn't know about it?
No.
Oh my gosh.
And so I went and watched one week and I said, okay. And I went home and I wrote 5 minutes about my family. And I went back the next week and I won the contest. First night on stage. And I met my wife that night.
What?
So, she was there. She was an actress and she had just worked with one of the comedians in the contest. And so they had a group that was there rooting for him. So I met my career and my wife the same night.
Wow.
Yeah.
You might be a redneck. Where did that come from? I mean, how did this come about? And were miracles involved?
Well, it was funny. I was in the early days, I'd go work in New York and LA, and they were always, I had guys in New York going, "You got to change your accent. You got that stupid accent." And I was like, well, where I come from, you have the stupid accent. So I always thought, no, this is who I am. And I wore boots and jeans and I drove a pickup truck. And so it was always good natured, but it was always like, Foxworthy, you're nothing but a redneck from Georgia. And one night I'm playing at a comedy club outside Detroit. And after the show, we're sitting around and they're kidding me about being a redneck. And the club we were playing in was attached to a bowling alley that had valet parking. And I said, okay, if you don't think you have rednecks in Michigan, look out the window. People are valet parking at the bowling alley. And I went back to the hotel and I thought, all right, I know what I am. But apparently a lot of people don't. And I wrote 10 ways to tell how you might be a redneck, never thinking it was going to be a hook or books, or I just was trying to write stand-up. And I went back the next night. And people not only laughed, they were pointing at each other. And I thought, okay, well, if I can write 10, can I write 50? If I can write 50, can I write 100? If I can write 100, can I write? And then I thought, well, maybe it's a book. And so I started approaching publishers. Well, I got turned down by the first 14 publishers I sent it to.
Oh, wow.
And the 15th publisher called me and he said, "I think this is pretty funny." He said, "How does $1,500 sound?" And I didn't answer him because I thought he was asking me for $1,500, and I didn't have $1,500. And he's like, no, we're going to pay you. And I'm like, oh yeah, well then we got a deal. And I asked him, I said, "How many do you think we'll sell?" He said, "I bet we sell 5,000 of them." Well, we sold 4.5 million of them. Nobody saw it coming.
Wow.
And so, my life is full of stinking miracles. My goal was to be on the Tonight Show. Jay Leno saw me and went back and told Johnny Carson about me. I mean, there's just so many things that you look back and go, wow, I can't believe that happened.
Jeff, is there one miracle that stands out as the biggest miracle in your life other than meeting your wife?
My kids. My youngest one just got married last weekend. And it was funny because like moms and daughters, they lost their mind planning the wedding. And I said to my daughter, I said, there's, can I just request one thing? I said, when the dad walks down and he gives them away, I said, you always have a preacher that barely knows them that says a prayer. I said, I've been praying for you before you were born, and I've been praying for him not long after you were born. Can I be the one that says the prayer? And she was like, yeah, you could do that. And my dad was married 6 times. I didn't know you could still love the same woman. Yeah. I didn't know you could still love the same woman after 33 years. I didn't know that you could invest in your kids and then it would come back to you where when they grew up, they wanted to be close to where you lived. And, I didn't know I could do something that I loved doing and would have done for free and made a great living doing it. So my whole life is a miracle. I joke. I'm 2 decisions from drywalling. I mean, that's probably what I should have been doing in life.
Jeff, I know that your time is short and we have to end soon, so I just have a couple quick fire questions for you before we end.
Okay, here we go.
I have to tell you one of my favorite redneck jokes of yours, which is, if you have a set of bowls that say Cool Whip on the side, you might be a redneck.
Kelly, that's my sister. That is my sister. I know she had to have bought dishes. We've never seen them. Yeah.
My sister, who you met back at Disney World, she lives out in the middle of nowhere in Ashby, Nebraska, and she is a redneck. And I said, well, tell me one of the redneck jokes you've made up. And she said, if you have to blow up your bed before you go to sleep at night, you might be a redneck. I want to know one of your top redneck jokes. And I know there's thousands.
All right, I'll tell you a few.
Okay.
In the early days, one of my favorites was if your working television sits on top of your non-working television, because my grandparents had the old console, and it died, and they went and bought another TV and put it on top of the console. And I would always say, well, get rid of the one that doesn't work. And my granddad would go, well, that's good wood. I'm not getting rid of that, you know. And
oh, that's good.
I did one for NASCAR with that. If your son's name is Dale Jr. and your name's not Dale, you might be a redneck. And there was a few of them when I wrote them, they made me laugh. Like if you've ever stared at a can of orange juice because it said concentrate. I mean, when I wrote that, I said either this is funny or really, really stupid, you know.
Well, if people go to your Facebook page, you post the most hilarious redneck photos that I have ever seen. And so I encourage everyone to go to your Facebook page because it's so funny. But just one other question really quick. If your life were a sitcom, what would the title be?
Luckiest man alive, probably.
And if your best friend could describe you in 3 words, what would that be?
You know what? My best friend from the time I was in the 5th grade is now my manager.
Oh, who is this?
His name is Larry Burns, and he had worked for Delta, and he was like the CIO of Intercontinental Hotels, and he had gotten to the point in life where he had a job that he hated. And I'd reached a point where my representation didn't reflect the same values that I did. And so I said to him, you hate your job and I need a manager. Why don't you manage me? And he said, I know nothing about it. I said, no, but you've got integrity and you've got common sense. And so a few weeks ago, we were going somewhere to do a show. And he said to me, he said, you know, the cool thing about you, you're exactly the same as when you were in the 5th grade. And I said, that's probably the best compliment, you know, that you could give me was, even though I've had a crazy life, it didn't change who I was.
Jeff, I know you became a man of faith at a really young age. You know, you told your mom you wanted to get baptized at a young age. She didn't believe that you were ready. And then,
yeah, she had the preacher come over to the house, and he said, and I remember him sitting there with me, and he walked down, he goes, he knows what he's doing. And so, you know, at a very early age, I just kind of felt like God had his hand on me. And it's not that I haven't done a billion things wrong or that I'm a saint or an angel, but it's funny. People that don't have faith will say, well, people that have faith are narrow-minded. And I'm like, no, because you only believe in what you can understand and what you can see and what you can touch. But I believe there's something more going on. So really, I'm not narrow-minded. I'm pretty broad-minded. You're the one that only believes what you can see and touch. I mean, I've just seen it too often. I've seen people that were written off for dead, and people prayed for them. You know, I had a kid that I helped in Atlanta that got shot in the head at 20 feet with a shotgun, and they told his mom he won't live through the night. Well, he did, and then they said he'll never come out of a coma, and he did. And they said he'll never talk, and he did. They said he'll never walk. Well, he's grown and has graduated college, and that was. I totally believe it was just because there was a notion of people praying for this kid.
Absolutely.
And so, you know, I've got kids that I've known from children's hospitals. I had a lady that came up to me one day, and she had this little girl running around. She's a beautiful little girl, about 10 or 11 years old. She said, can I get a picture with you and her? And I said, yeah. And we stopped and did the picture. She said, I have another picture of you and her together, but she only weighed 1.5 pounds then. And it was when I was touring a hospital, you know, and I got to visit this mom with 1.5 pound baby. I mean, the size of a squirrel. And I mean, I just started crying. And I'm like, crap, it works. It works. You know, this thing that we give our time and money to, here's this beautiful little girl that's going to be somebody's mom and one day somebody's grandmom. And it was because of things like what you guys do. I mean, that's a miracle.
That is a miracle. Well, the last question that I ask, and I ask this to every guest on the podcast, if there were 3 miracles you could create in the world today, what would that be for you?
Okay, one of them, I was lucky. I grew up in the same town that Chick-fil-A started in. So I knew Truett Cathy, who started Chick-fil-A from a very early age. Mm-hmm. And I remember when I was a kid, he used to say, do you know when somebody needs encouragement? And you would go, no. And he would say, if they're breathing. Everybody needs encouragement. Wow. And so it doesn't cost you anything to be an encourager, to just, and being an encourager may be just walking in and seeing somebody and go, oh, I love your hair, or you got the prettiest eyes, or something to encourage me. Because we live in a world right now that's so emotional. We all talk about tolerance, but then if somebody doesn't agree with us on an issue, we slam them and we lambaste them. And I'm like, no, that's not tolerance. Tolerance is, why don't we just all be encouragers and find the good in each other? So that would be one. Mm-mm. 2,
so great.
And it doesn't cost you a dime. Everybody can be an encourager. 2, end cancer. I've seen way too much of it in my life. And so I would love to see that happen. And 3, it's make generosity a universal thing. Even our poor people are better off than a lot of people in the world. We all have way more than we need. And so you don't have to look very far. And for some people, it may be being involved with a Children's Miracle Network. Some people, it may be being involved with homelessness, but there's opportunities there to be generous with your time. If you don't have money, if you got money, be generous with your money. I mean, I think that's why we're here, is to just love on and help each other.
Jeff, thank you so much for sharing those miracles. And I just want to acknowledge you and thank you for your time today and for being an amazing human being who continues to change the world and help people in it by making them laugh, by service, by love, by compassion, by encouragement. It's just truly an honor to talk to you today. And I just want to tell our guests to tune into your show on Sirius XM, the Jeff and Larry's Comedy Roundup. And also, where can listeners follow you? You're on Facebook.
Yeah, I'm on Facebook. It's my name, jefffoxworthy.com. I also have Foxworthy Outdoors.
And you're on the road. You're touring all the time.
Yeah, you can find my dates on there, and still loving what I do. So life's good.
Well, thank you so much, Jeff, and I hope you have an amazing day.
Thank you, Kelly. You too. God bless. Take care.
RE/MAX recently unveiled the company's Tiny Homes for Tiny Tots campaign. Starting July 26th, RE/MAX will auction off a tiny home built by students at Henry Ford Community College in Michigan. The proceeds from the auction will benefit Children's Miracle Network hospitals. Visit tinyhomestinytots.com for details.